Hello, welcome to another episode of Tinkering with Techtic. In this episode, I'm going to be going over making your very own security camera. So what I have here is a camera that sends a live feed onto your network server. From your network server, you can then control the location and orientation of your camera using these servos. So hold on to your butts, folks, and let's get right into it.
First, we're going to start with the pan and tilt of the camera. I used an old box of screws for my enclosure. We're then going to hot glue our pan servo to the square cut shown here. Then, we'll glue the tilt servo on top. And finally, we'll glue the camera to the tilt servo arm. Be sure to have a large enough hole for the camera wires to feed through, so they don't get snagged when the camera's moving around. Next, we'll move on to the code. First and foremost, I want to give credit of the first part of my code to Miguel Greenberg. He gave me the section of my script that sets the Pi camera for live streaming. I embedded it into my code, so if you guys want to download it, it's one-stop shopping. Next, we'll initialize the Servo pins that will pan and tilt the camera. In order to communicate via web-based application, I will be using the Flask library. This essentially lets you have application functions run within your code. This section of the code is the actual HTML building of the web page. The first script grabs the previous value that the slider was at and displays it as the current value. This will allow for a more intuitive interface when moving the camera. Next, we'll simply display the image in sliders, and when submit is hit, send slider values to the servo to actuate. Lastly, when using app.run, be sure to set the host to 0000. This will allow any device on your network to access the web page by typing the IP address of your Pi into a URL. Finally, I designed this device to not need a monitor to run. In order to do that, I told the Pi to run this script on boot. The way to do that is by typing in the following command into your terminal, then update rc.local to include sudo python, then your script location. Now let's go ahead and finish the build. Now we're going to install the camera into the Raspberry Pi. Be sure to have the blue side facing the USB ports. Next, we'll install the signal lead wires for both servos into the Raspberry Pi, and we're going to use GPIO 19 and GPIO 13. Then we'll connect both ground leads to our ground rail and both 3.3 volt leads to our positive rail. Next, we'll connect our ground rail to our ground on our Pi, and our 3.3 volt rail to our 3.3 volt supply on the Pi. Finally, we'll feed our power supply and switch into the side of the enclosure, and we are done. Shout out to one of our Patreon subscribers, Mr. Ben Checkness, for giving me the name of this device. It shall be named the NARC, or Network Accessible Remote Controlled Camera. And there we have it, folks. Your very own NARC. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you like what you see, check out one of my other videos using the links on your screen. And if you would like to see more great content like this, make sure to like, subscribe, or even check out our Patreon in the link below.